Welcome back to another White Flag Devotional. I hope your Tuesday is going well for you, no matter what time of day you're watching this. Today's text comes out of Luke chapter 10, verses 25 through 37. It's the parable of the Good Samaritan. Will you follow along with me? It says this: on one occasion, as an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he asked, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" "What is written in the law?" he replied. "How do you read it?" He answered, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind. And love your neighbor as yourself." "You have answered correctly," Jesus replied. "Do this and you will live." But he wanted to justify himself. So he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" In reply, Jesus said, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. 'Look after him,' he said, 'and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have.' Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers?" The expert in the law replied, "The one who had mercy on him." Jesus told him, "Go and do likewise." Now, some of the biggest questions of mankind is, does life after death exist? And how can we have eternal life? Or what's the meaning? What's the purpose of life? All these kind of correlate together. Well, in this passage, a religious man asks Jesus how one can inherit eternal life. The religious man, who was also a lawyer, already knows that God exists in this context, and he knows that he's accountable to the God if God exists. So his question is pretty targeted to Jesus. He says, "Teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" See, if God exists, then the goal of life must be related to his purpose for us. The lawyer seems to assume, though, that he needs to do something to earn this eternal life. But when Jesus pushes him a little bit, we see that he knows that works aren't necessarily the issue, because Jesus asks, "What is written in the law? How do you read it?" The lawyer responds with basically the great commandments: love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your minds, and love your neighbor as yourself. Now, there is a truth that lies at the heart of Jesus' reply and explains why Jesus' approval it's not endorsing salvation by works. You see, when Jesus says, "Do this and you will live," he's saying that the relationship to God is what gives life. The relationship to God is what gives life, not the works that give life. We are designed to be loved by God and to love God in return. We're designed to be in a relationship with him. This is what Jesus is trying to get across. And then as we are loved by God and we love him in return, and that relationship flourishes, well, then the product of that relationship is that we then love our neighbors. We're propelled to then love people because the God of the universe loves us. The product of our relationship with God is we turning and loving other people, loving our neighbors. The lawyer is confused, though, even though his answer is correct, because he still thinks that eternal life is earned rather than received in the context of a loving relationship with God. He's focused on the second half of the reply about the neighbor rather than the relationship with God, which allows us to love our neighbor. Jesus' reply not only shakes up the false premise that this man has, but it also causes the man, and should cause us, to think through the fact that our neighbors can come from any place. They can come from anywhere. They can be anybody, and they can be any type of person. Our neighbors can be anybody. The idea of the Samaritan is somewhat lost on us today because we've heard the story so much, if we've grown up in the church, that we kind of automatically think favorable of the Samaritan because we've been told the story, and we know that, of course, he's the one that helped the guy on the road, so he's the good guy. But when the lawyer heard this story, and anybody else hearing this story in his context in his day, they would have interpreted the Samaritan as the bad guy, the ultimate bad guy. Being the good neighbor should cause them to take pause. It's like saying the person that you disagree with the most on Facebook about politics is the good guy, the good neighbor. Our neighbors can be anyone that God has placed in our path to love. Our neighbors can be anybody, from anywhere, any type of person that God has placed in our path to love, to show his love to, because he first loved us. So as we seek to surrender more and more to him, we need to keep reminding ourselves that we can't earn our salvation. We can't earn his love. And because we know we don't deserve his love, but we receive it anyhow, we should be compelled to then love our neighbors no matter who they are or where they come from. And our neighbors can be anybody. This is an act of surrendering our will to his. So as you go about today, as you spend prayer time with God, be asking yourselves, be asking him in prayer, who am I called to love? Who's my neighbor? Who do I need to love? How do I need to surrender to you, God, by loving people that we may not think that we're supposed to love? Stay well. Thanks for being with us.